In this video, we're back in our English project, and we're going to resume building our English lexicon and grammar. And the next step is to come to the feature adjustment rules. So I'll double-click here, and we see this dialog. Here we do three tasks: hide features, collapse feature values, and add new features. First is hide features. And generally, we don't need to hide very many features. There's one section I'll comment on, and that is initially, by default, all the clauses are marked for the speaker, the listener. So whenever there's a direct quote, like when Moses is talking to Pharaoh, for example, there's a speaker, a general category, like a man to a king, or a son to his father, or a daughter to her mother, or something like that. The speaker, the category, the listener, speaker's attitude, speaker's age, speaker-listener age, meaning is the speaker younger than the listener, or is the speaker older than the listener, or are they essentially the same age? And then there's this style, speech style. We'll need to write a rule that sets that if our language uses this, but English doesn't use this. Many languages have a system of honorifics, and so when one person speaks to another person, you need to know the relative status of the speaker and the listener, and you need to generate the proper pronouns, the proper style, speech style. But by default, these are hidden. If your language needs these, then you should uncheck these. We are going to hide discourse genre. If we rest our cursor right now on a clause boundary, we see discourse genre equals climactic narrative story. But in our analysis, we haven't actually been using this discourse genre, so I'm going to hide that. Notional structure schema we haven't been using. Salience band is important. All these others are important. So we'll hide that one. Now let's go to collapse feature values. Okay, we have all the syntactic categories here. Nouns comes first. And this one, singular, plural, and pockle, this one was collapsed for us back during the initialization. You may remember, I think it was the very first video. In English, we don't distinguish dual or trial or quadrille. To us, those are just plural. So dual has been, if we say reset rule. Okay, so now it's back to normal. This is the default. But to us, dual, we mark it the same as plural, and trial, we mark it the same as plural. Quadrille is also the same as plural. So that's what we would do if we were doing this manually. Let's look at the other features. Participant tracking. Okay, first mention, like I read a book. In English we say or some. I read a book. I read some books. That's first mention. Routine is in English when we say the. Integration. Okay, integration, exiting, restaging, and offstage. I've read that these are important, but we haven't actually been using them in the analysis yet. For certain languages, these will be necessary, but English doesn't need them, and the languages we've worked in so far haven't needed them, so we'll leave these alone. Generic, that's like there are lions in Africa. It's not routine, it's not first mention, just generic. Interrogative is like, which book did you read? And frame inferable, I bought a car, the steering wheel was broken. So we say the, even though it's first mentioned. So in English, frame inferable and routine are the same. We both encode we encode both of these with the word the. So we'll drag frame inferable up to routine. Now from now on, we won't see frame inferable either in the analysis or in the grammar rules, because it's now collapsed to routine. Let's go to some of these others. Polarity, affirmative, negative, we need those. Proximity. Okay, we have all of these values. In English, we only have proximal and distal, so we don't need all of these, so we'll collapse these. Here it's convenient to add a new value. Let's say proximal. We'll use that for things that are near us, and then we'll add another value. Let's call it distal. We'll use that for things that are distant. Okay, near speaker and listener. In English, we would say this. So let's collapse that to proximal. And near speaker, we would again say this in English. Okay, if an item is near the listener, we would say that. So let's collapse that to distal. And remote within sight. In English, we would use that. Remote out of sight, we would say that. Temporally near, like this weekend. Let's collapse that to proximal. Temporally remote, like that year. Let's say distal. Contextually near with focus, we would say that. So distal. Contextually near, we would say this. So now we have not applicable plus two values, proximal and distal. And from now on, in both the analysis and our grammar rules, we won't see all of these other values. We'll only see proximal and distal. So it makes our grammar writing task considerably easier. Person. Okay, first, second, third, first inclusive, first exclusive. Okay, in English we don't have first inclusive and first exclusive, so we can collapse these to first. In English all we care about is first person, second person, and third person. Surface realization. Noun, always a noun. Okay, always a noun is reserved for verses like John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. We don't want to say in the beginning was the Word, and it was God, and it was with God. We want Word, Word, Word. So we need that value. Big pro, that's a linguistic term, syntactically active but phonetically null, and personal pronoun. We need all of these, so we won't change those. Participant status, we don't want to collapse these. Let's go to verbs. Okay, the first one is time, and this one was also collapsed for us back, I think it was the very first video when we did all of that initialization. In English, all we care about is past, present, and future. Okay, aspect, we want all of these. Mood, we want all of these. Reflexivity, reciprocal and reflexive, we want those. Polarity, affirmative, negative, emphatic affirmative, and emphatic negative, we want those. Adjective degree, we don't, in English we don't need that. Target tense and form, past, present, and future, and specified. We'll talk more about this later. So that's it for the verbs. Adjective, we need all of these various degrees. That's all for adjectives. Adverbs, we need all of these. Adpositions don't have any features. Conjunctions, phrasal, they don't have features. We need all of those. Semantic role, we need all of those. We need all of these. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, that's all the collapsing we need to do for English. Okay, add new features. We see these values have already been checked. These again were checked for us way back in that first video when we did all of the initialization. For example, if we rest our cursor here, we see grammatical relation equals subject. And that comes from, you can see, let's move this a bit. If we rest our cursor, here, then we see the features. The pop-up shows us the features. It explains all those letters. If we rest our cursor here, we see the history of this noun phrase. And we see in the last line, the next to last, features change from grammatical relation equals oblique to subject by transfer grammar, feature adjustment rules, rule number 5. Initialize grammatical relations with voice. So that's this one, rule number 5, grammatical relation with voice. So that history pop-up is very helpful. We'll use that a lot in subsequent videos. So that's all for feature adjustment rules. We can say close this. And now, remember we hid the discourse genre. And now the pop-up no longer shows us the discourse genre. But someday, if we need that feature, we can always come back and we can scroll down to clauses and we'll unhide discourse genre. And now it's back again. You see there, discourse genre equals climactic narrative story. Let's go back and hide that. I just watched this video and I realized that I made a mistake. So let's go back to our feature adjustment rules and collapse feature values. For nouns, for proximity, I put contextually near with proximal. Okay, for proximal, we'll later write a rule that inserts the word this for all of these: near speaker and listener, near speaker, temporally near. But for contextually near, okay, for contextually near with focus, we'll say this. For just contextually near, we'll say that. So I want to change that. And we can use this. I don't want to reset the entire rule. We could, but since these were the last two items that I collapsed, if we use the undo button, then we see contextually near is no longer collapsed. And contextually near with focus was the next one that I did, so we'll undo that one. And now we can drag contextually near with focus to proximal and contextually near with distal. And so now those are proper. I watched this video again and found that I made another mistake. First exclusive shouldn't be collapsed to second. So let's undo that. First exclusive should be collapsed to first. So please go ahead and make that change in your project. My colleagues and I recently added some new values to the noun feature called person. And you can see them here. First is third, second is third, first inclusive is third, first exclusive is third. So these are used when the speaker is referring to either himself or the listener in the third person. And I explained these new feature values in the help video. If you want to see that, you can go to the help videos, generator tutorials, and then it's the features associated with nouns. So video number 33. This video explains these features and has examples of them. In this video, we're going to decide what to do with these in our English grammar. Before we actually make some changes, there are three common ways of handling these, and I'd like to show those to you. So we're talking about how to handle nouns tagged as first person as third, or second person as third, first inclusive as third, first exclusive as third. And for our example, we'll look at Joshua 5:14 because it has two examples in one sentence. The NIV says, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" Okay, this is Joshua talking. He's talking to the commander of the Lord's army. The Bible refers to him as a man. It's probably an angel, but that's irrelevant right now. But Joshua says to this commander of the Lord's army, "What message does my Lord have for his servant?" So Joshua is being very respectful here. Normally we would say, "What message do you have for me?" Okay? In our analysis of this particular sentence, we don't talk about having a message for someone. Instead we say, "Will my master tell a message to his servant?" So this is how we've analyzed it, but then we've tagged master as second person as third, and then servant is tagged as first person as third. Okay? Now there are three common ways of handling these pronouns. First, translate them as first and second person pronouns. This is the simple way. Will you tell a message to me? So that's very simple, but it loses the idea that Joshua is being very humble, that he's honoring this man. It loses the idea that Joshua is referring to himself as a servant and this other person as Lord. But that is one option. Just use simple first and second person pronouns. Another option is to translate them with the positives. Will you, my master, tell a message to me, your servant? So this makes it clearer. Will you, so we're using the regular pronouns, you and me, but we're still including the idea that Joshua is calling this man his master, and Joshua is referring to himself as a servant. And then the third option is translate them with third person pronouns, third person nouns. This is the literal option. So if we go this direction, we would say, will my master tell a message to his servant? And this is what many of the English translations do, and we all, when we read these, we figure out Joshua is being polite, and he's referring to this man as his master, and referring to himself as a servant. So those are the three options. I'd like to show you how to accomplish each of those options. So here are the three options, 1, 2, and 3. And to show you these steps, I'm going to switch to a different language project. And then later we'll come back to our actual English demo project and we'll do it. But to illustrate these, I want to switch to this one. And here we are in Joshua 5:14. Let's go to sentence number 6. So in your language project right now, you don't have many of these words. I've done some work before this video to show you how to illustrate these 3 options. Okay, you can see here. Okay, servant is tagged as the person value is first as third, and master, the person value is second as third. And if we generate it right now, will my master tell a message to master servant? So it needs some work. We could say, will my master tell a message to his servant? But if we look here, our pronoun rule isn't working because the pronoun rule doesn't know what to do with that person value, second as third. Okay, so let's go ahead and consider our options. Okay, first option, translate them as first and second person pronouns. In other words, will you tell a message to me? Okay, for this option we need one rule from the grammar library, and we need to make an adjustment in our feature collapsing rule. So let's go to our grammar library, common transfer rules, and there's a rule here, number 24. Your numbers might be different, but the rule is called set surface realization of first as third, second as third, first inclusive, first exclusive as third, 2 pronouns. So this rule will take these 4 values and convert and just set the surface realization into personal pronoun. So let's copy that into our project. And we always drag to a group name. So right there. So now we have this new rule. And now let's go to our feature adjustment rule. Okay, if we want to treat these as simple pronouns, then we will collapse first as third to first person. We will collapse second as third to second person. First inclusive as first, and first exclusive as first. So now we're back to just first, second, and third. And now if we generate it, will you tell a message to me? So that's fine. It's not showing the respect, and we've lost the part about servant and master, but that's a reasonable translation. That's the first option. The second option, translate them with the positives. In other words, will you, my master, tell a message to me, your servant? Okay, for this option, we need to copy 2 rules from the grammar library. We've already copied one of them. There's another rule down here. Add positives for first as third, second as third, first inclusive, exclusive as third. So this rule looks for these nouns with these particular person values, and there may or may not be a modifying noun phrase. Then it inserts a noun phrase, puts in a leading and trailing comma, and copies this noun out. You don't need to understand the details of this. We're just going to drag this up into our project. So now it's here. And we still want to, for our feature adjustment rules, we don't need to change anything for this. We'll keep them collapsed like this. And if we generate this now, will you, my master, tell a message to me, your servant? Okay. We need to update our phrase structure rule for noun phrases so that it knows what to do with the leading comma. So let's do that. Okay. Down here we have a group called phrase final punctuation. Let's add another group up at the top called phrase initial punctuation. And in this group, we'll add a leading comma. This won't be in the drop list here, so we can just type it. We need to type it the same way as it appears here, leading comma with capital letters and everything. Okay. Okay, will you, my master, tell a message to me, your servant? Okay, so that's our second option. The third option is the literal one. Translate them with third person nouns. Will my master tell a message to his servant? For that option, we don't want either of these grammar rules, but I'm not going to delete them. I'm going to just turn them off. And let's go back to our feature adjustment rules. Okay, we want to treat these as third-person nouns. So I'm going to move them back down here. We want to treat these as third-person nouns, so let's collapse them with the third-person option. Will my master tell a message to his servant? So now it's very literal, and if your target language permits that, then this may be the desired solution for you. For us, we're going to go with option number 2 in our language project. We're going to use the first and second person pronouns modified by these appositives. And for that, I will switch back to our English demo project. So let's copy our rules from the grammar library. We need this one, and we need this one. We won't see an example here. So now we have those two rules in our project. Let's go to our feature adjustment rules. So we will collapse first as third as first, second as third as second, first inclusive to first, and first exclusive as first. And we won't show an example right now, but that's you should do this part, okay? As you're following along in these videos, please copy those two rules from the library into your project, and also collapse these values as I've shown here.